Cassie and Cory, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Good to
Well,
be
I've
here.
been looking forward to this. It's been over 4 years since we had you last back on the podcast. Episode 134, we'll link to that in the show notes where you guys shared your Coast FI journey. And I'm looking forward to catching up and hearing about what you've been up to since then. Cassie, let's start with you. What's changed most in your life? What's changed most for your family since January of 2020?
It's we'll skip over the couple of years where everybody's life changed a little bit, but for us personally, I'm still in the same job I was in at that time, but one less. So I think at that time I was juggling two jobs, and that was a bit much. So I've been able to cut back to just working for a company where I work from home. It's remote. I get to have time with the kids and be flexible, which is fantastic. Um, I feel like our life is at an ever state of change because we have
We've two more kids since then. Since January
yeah,
2020, two kids and a dog. So
a dog has been at it. Yeah.
I want to forget them if they ever go back and listen to this.
Right.
Especially the poor middle kid, definitely would have left out of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that middle child, that's a real thing. I've got four boys and the middle two, like that's very real. That's very real. But a lot has changed in a relatively short period of time, personally and professionally. And Cory, I don't want to get into technical weeds on this episode. We've done that in so many other shows, but I also don't want to assume that everyone knows what Coast FI is. So give us the 30-second commercial of Coast FI.
sure, Coast FI is basically a way of saving for retirement where you save aggressively early in your life, your career, so that you hit a certain amount in your retirement savings so that by the time you actually hit retirement age, if you don't add any more money to that account, time and compound interest will get you to the place where you'll have enough for retirement. So uh, that is it. Versus working up until the day you retire, like doing a little bit over a long period of time. This is more geared towards, hey, let's hit the gas early in our careers, but it doesn't mean that we're going to try to get fully financially independent. It just means that once we hit that number, we don't worry as much about saving for retirement.
Yeah, and you and I have talked before offline that for savers, right, especially when you're aggressively saving early in your career, it's hard to just say, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. So it's typically saving that will continue on, but you're doing a bolus of savings early on. And often I'll present an example where, hey, if you save, let's say, 200,000 or $250,000 in your first 5-7 years, and if you were to do nothing else, not that that's typically the goal, but if you were to do nothing else, the math is pretty wild, right? Time value of money, compound interest. So that's the idea with Coast FI. Now, can be easier said than done. Competing priorities, student loan debt, raising a young family, all the stuff that you guys have been through as well. But it's a different way of thinking about maybe traditional retirement planning, which, as you said, is small amounts of savings over a long period of time. Cory, I know you've described Coast FI as really owning your time, having the freedom to pursue what's meaningful. How has that played out for you guys in real life?
Well, from January of 2020 to now, I've gone from a full-time job to a part-time job. I've written a couple of books. I have been able to pursue my speaking career more earnestly. I have Thursday mornings to record podcasts with awesome people like you. So like professionally, that's been a big shift, is less time in the pharmacy and more time with my kids in an age where they still seem to want to hang out with me, which has been great. So a lot more mental energy for, one thing I'll say is Cassie said when I cut from full to part-time, like I was just happier and more patient, which I'm sure the kids will appreciate at some point or in the moment now too. And then just more mental energy for those other pursuits. So, and then the thing that I think we sometimes lose appreciation for that I try to make sure we do is like Thursday morning. It's a school day and most people are rushing off to work and we're having a hot beverage slowly as our kids are beating each other up and slowly pushing them out the door for school versus having that rushed feeling that all five of us have to get out the door. It's mainly, it's two or three kids that we have to get to. So just a lot less like mental burden on us.
Yeah, along those lines, a lot less rush and a lot more being present. Like in a world of full-time work, rush out the door at 7 a.m. You don't get to just sit and play a game of cards with your kids on a Thursday morning. I think sometimes we forget how lucky we are to get to do that because it's just become our normal. Like it feels like vacation every week.
Yeah, that was the comment she made literally like last week. We were sitting there playing some cards with the kids before summer camp or the baby was going to daycare still, and she's like, "Oh man, this feels like our summer vacation from like a month ago when we were playing cards in the
Mhm.
morning." So it's not something that we try. It's something we try not to take for granted too much.
When you guys, Cassie, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Cory, feel free to jump in as well. When you think about where you guys were at 4.5 years ago with the Coast FI progress, or even on the front end of the journey, the vision that excited you guys to get started, sometimes the reality and the vision, sometimes they align, sometimes they don't. Maybe there's some surprises or things that were different along the way. Is there anything that surprised you about living in this Coast FI life, this Coast FI phase, the realities versus the vision?
I think what you mentioned earlier for savers, it's hard to stop saving. And so I think in my head, I had this idea of, oh, you hit a Coast number and you're like, cool, great, like let's party. And it's really hard to shift that mindset. Like we've gradually allowed ourselves to inflate our lifestyle slightly at nothing extravagant, like expensive electrolyte salt. Like I'm not talking anything crazy, but we wouldn't have let ourselves buy that 4 years ago. And so just making that room to say it's okay to spend a little because our income is still coming in and we're saving less. So that realizing that's actually a harder shift to make than I thought it would be.
Yeah, not filling up those retirement buckets fully was probably the biggest shift for me of realizing, like, when I cut to part-time, like I could fill it up all the way, but then we don't have as much money for lifestyle. And I think I didn't realize the vision of putting in I'll call it investing in those experiences, especially with like our kids, like sporting equipment. We just bought a piano, like stuff for music, summer camps. Like we don't warehouse them all summer in summer camps, but when the oldest one wants to go to baseball camp an extra day, we're like, okay, great. We kind of have in our head like the vision of them, because full disclosure, we still save some for retirement. So, and also it was a party up until that point too, honey. For the record, it wasn't just like hit the Coast FI and then party. It was a party the whole time. But we still do some saving. So some of the, I mean, don't want to get too off topic, but some of the critics of Coast FI say, well, you stop saving and you're going to run out of money when you retire. Like, we get our employer match. We still do that, but the big like vision of actually spending more has been way better than what I even imagined. But we also started from a place where we didn't spend a lot of money frivolously anyway. So like when we are intentional about how we spend, it's like, oh wow, that really was money well spent.
I think too, when you're in that delayed gratification, right, it's just natural human behavior that you start to treasure and enjoy those. And I do think there's a valuable reflective piece to slow down and not forget, like the Thursday morning card game. I don't want to get used. I mean, it's going to keep happening, but I want to continue to be grateful for this, right? Because you've worked hard to put yourselves in a position for that. You mentioned the electrolyte. So, like, I've been looking for permission to buy that for a while now. So thank you guys for giving me permission, by the way. I got it.
Us.
Or the baseball. That's a great one. I was just thinking about this week where we have a soccer camp that our soccer program runs every year, and it's next week, and we were kind of on the fence, and we decided, hey, let's do it for the week. And, not to say I didn't think about the cost at all, but it wasn't a big factor. Right. And that wouldn't have been the case 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And I'm incredibly grateful for those kind of micro decisions. And for us, what I think we've realized is there's a time and place for the grandiose things and the grandiose trips. Those are great. But these are a lot of the examples. Like, these are the things. And I think it's finding, how do you treasure these things and really find the gratitude and the richness of the Thursday mornings, of the extra baseball, type of experience. So great examples.
If I can, I'll just piggyback on that. I think one other thing we've liberalized is just being more generous. Like when we give gifts, maybe, a graduation, a birthday, maybe we double or triple what we would have given before, because we're so grateful for what we have. And I think a great way to experience that is to share it with others.
Another thing that struck me, Cory, that you said is the comment around, some of the are you going to just stop saving right altogether? And it made me laugh, because it's like, it's not like compound interest in time, but it's not like it just stops, right? Working its magic all of a sudden, right? You've done the hard work. And of course you can always look at it and say there's an opportunity cost. But when you get to that point where your savings are vastly out earning anything you're going to contribute yourself, like, it really changes the perspective on how are we using these dollars. And when you get to that how much is enough question, especially when you've got a young family and you're in the season of life that you have. It's just very convicting and challenging of like, well, we could save more, but if we've answered the question that is enough, what are the opportunities in front of us right now? Cassie, around giving, you talked about that, around the experiences that are right in front of us as well. So I love the balance that you guys have struck. Can you give us some more details, Cory, on the specifics of how you think about saving versus spending now? So you mentioned we haven't stopped altogether. There's still employer matches, but how have you made that transition, and not only financially, but maybe emotionally, and letting some of that go as well?
Yeah, we'll start with the easy part, the financial part, and then we'll talk about my feelings. So I think like financially, I mean, for us, it's pretty simple. Like we have an idea of how much money we want to spend in retirement. You can do the 25x amount to kind of come with that 4% rule. And for those of you who don't understand that, well, you can Google 4% rule. We won't get caught in the weeds of that. But for how we save now, it's like, okay, what's the low hanging? Like we can get employer matches. Great. Like we'd be stupid to not take free money. Great. I still kind of, the one little point of contention is like, I want to make sure we do our Roth IRAs. Like let's fill those up every year. That's tax-free growth. Okay. And then anything that we have left over, then we could put into an after-tax account or save up cash for that next thing that we want. Because, you know what? Darn it, we do want some things. It's okay to want some things. We don't have a life that's deprived, but there's some stuff that we want. So financially, it's starting with the end in mind. Okay, we working backwards, like, okay, we have enough saved so that we're 38, 39, 20 years or so, like you doing some conservative returns in the market, like we will be okay. Great. Okay. What's our next immediate goal? Okay, we want to save for a sauna. All right. Well, that's going to be this much. Well, we make this much every month and there's this much left over. All right. How much do we want to put towards that? How much do we want to save for the kids' college? So, I mean, the nuts and bolts of it have been pretty simple. The emotional part was, I remember like cutting that first paycheck that was like, oh, that's not as much. And then because we have our budget spreadsheet and going in and plugging in like, okay, this is exactly what it looks like with what's taken out. All right, we can't fill everything up that in that traditional bucket. But I think is like the book Dive with Zero. I know you talked about it, going back to that, realizing that it's not worth the extra money saved right now versus the opportunity cost of experiences. So like, and I think the emotional part, and I got to give everyone listening, go on LinkedIn and read Tim's writing, because the emotional side of the identity as a pharmacist, working all this time for this degree and then choosing to work part of it or working less. And like, I mean, I've seen people say you have to keep working. You owe it to others. It's like, no, you don't. Like, you really have to spend my time and money other people, don't you? Taking that shift away from being this full-time pharmacist. And I was like a type A, cared about grades, like very into the profession, and to like step back from that and realize like, I'm cool going in, doing my work, going home, focusing on the writing, speaking, my family, not in that order, but having that emotional change. And how about you?
Well, you just made me think when you were saying, I think, type A and the emotions of the finances. I think Cory gets more comfort from like running those numbers over and over. We have our periodic, we sit down and get out a spreadsheet and have a lovely date of a budget party, and which I recommend everybody should do. It's so fun. And usually he wants to, do that calculation over and over. Okay, we have this much. This is how much it'll be in retirement. And I totally understand wanting those numbers to give you comfort. I think I operate a little bit more intuitively, and I feel like there's so many unknowns. I don't know what the market's going to do. I don't know what my financial needs are going to be in 30 years. I can't calculate it to the penny. And I don't want to die with all this money. I want to spend it and have some left. So I don't need all it to last forever. So more than 4% is probably going to be just fine. But I don't know how long I'm going to live. So because there's so many unknowns, I feel a lot more comfortable with just the big picture of like, we got an essay. It's going to grow. We'll probably be okay. Like, I know you need the numbers. I know you need to do that. But you reach a point where there's too many unknowns, and you have to let go of trying to control all those variables in your planning.
You're talking to pharmacists.
Remember
the audience.
Listen to me. You can't predict everything. So you have to just trust that you've worked hard, you've saved, and you've stacked the decks in your favor, and stuff happens. Maybe something crazy happens, but you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah, I think you just made everyone anxious. But Cassie, I continue to I am the number cruncher. I'm overconfident in that things are going to work out the way that the spreadsheet says they will. Of course, absolutely, you're 100% right, right? Variables can change, will change. And I think both of what you guys are sharing, it's such a powerful example of the value of these two perspectives. And I know you guys both kind of dabble in the middle as well, but so important, both of those. And I think that's one of the challenges I see in the Coast FI group, the aggressive savers, the broader FIRE movement, is that it's often overemphasizing, for good reasons. The math is the math. It's overemphasizing the calculations, the savings rates, all those things. And I think it's underestimating a lot of the behavior, emotional aspects of the financial plan. And I think that we often make fear of some of the risks to be much larger than they actually are, right? And here's my point. If the floor were to fall out for you guys tomorrow, which I hope this is not prophetic in doing that, but you think about like the licenses that you guys have, the experiences that you have, the savings that you have, the house that you have, the family support and structure that you have, the ability, right, to get employment in certain areas. And I would argue, of what I know of you guys, you still have a relatively frugal mindset, and a lot of what you've been doing in terms of loosening the reins is not as much in terms of like the monthly recurring fixed costs, but it's more of those one-off type of variable expenses or experiences, which is a huge indicator that if something happens, how quickly can you adjust or pivot, right? When you have 95% of your income tied up in fixed expenses that you can't do anything about, that can be suffocating. When your fixed expenses are 40, 50, 60%, and you guys are choosing to buy a sauna, that's not an every month purchase, right? Which, by the way, that
Right.
as long as our kids stay out,
Yeah.
don't break it. It should not be an every month purchase.
Well, based on my boys, it might be an every month purchase, but and by the way, that's on my list too. So my expenses are going up the longer I talk to you guys on the show, as you're giving me permission to buy these things now. But my point being that as you guys invest in those things, the sauna, the trips, the giving opportunity, of course, those are things that you continue to want to sustain and maintain and do. But in the event that something were to happen financially, markets, jobs, whatever, like you have a lot of breathing room. And that's why I think this frugality mindset, there's such some negativity around frugality. Like, I am blessed with the frugality my mom gave me, and I'm grateful to be learning how to loosen the reins, but loosen it in the reins that are both comfortable, that apply the die with zero types of concepts and experiences, but know still that I have a lot of breathing room and options along the way.
Yeah, and that's something we've set ourselves up for. Like we purchased our home. Initially, we had a 15-year mortgage. Sorry, Ramsey fans, but we refinanced to a 30, and that provided a ton of breathing room in our budget. We have 3 vehicles, which seems extravagant, but they're all paid off, and they're a combined age of like 35 years old. So like they're like 45 years old. So
I rode in one.
Fancy vehicles, but
I got to ride in one.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you rode Tim got to ride the new 2016 model.
That's our pizza.
Yeah, the Cubs World Series edition, 2016. So yeah, like those are things that we've sort of, again, controlling what you can, pharmacists, like fixed expenses, like transportation and housing. And of course, we live in Tucson, so cost of living is reasonable compared to a big city. But that's the choice we made to live here because of that ability to have a pretty reasonable lifestyle. Like we think is a great house in a wonderful neighborhood in a great school district for a very reasonable price of a home. So that helps us sleep better at night, knowing that if something happened, like, okay, we could afford this is a very reasonable mortgage, and we're not going to have to pay for another vehicle. And so those are, I think, emotionally, going back to the emotions, like, okay, that helps me feel more comfortable when it's baseball camp time, or when I buy a piano, or some of these other larger purchases that are one time, because it's not like, I know, but are we going to be able to pay the mortgage too? So, and dialing back your income, again, this helps with that, not having that suffocation of all those things. And just to empathize, like, we understand a lot of people listening still have student loans. They have multiple priorities that are competing, and that's where having a good plan can come in handy. And fortunately, early in our careers, we came up with that plan, and then executed it to the best we could with what
Yep.
life threw at us. And we stand before you today in 2025 talking about what we're able to do because of it. So,
Like you said, choices. I don't know what I want to
Mhm.
do in 10 years, but I want to have options
Absolutely.
to be able to do what I want.
One thing I've been thinking a lot about, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this, is as a saver, as a planning for the future person, one of my fears is like, am I living the rich life right now and I'm not even realizing it? And I think I've come to realize the answer to that is an obvious yes. But I'm trying to find ways to say that out loud more. Like I am here on the podcast, say that out loud to Jess. Like, when we're feeling kind of the crunch of certain things, like the reason we're feeling that crunch is because of the intentional decisions we've made to invest in things that are part of the rich life right now. Investing, you talk about the piano, like for us, it's music lessons, it's going to sporting events, it's traveling in this season of life where, our boys are just at a great age and doing those types of experiences. And when I think about, it's busy, it's chaotic, but to have the flexibility from a work standpoint, to be able to have the flexibility to do that financially, it's like, this isn't a future thing. It's here right now. It's here.
Yeah. We often tell ourselves these are the good old days. Like right now, this is it. These are the good old days.
and I think having that different financial personality in Cassie versus me helps to get us to that point where if I'm like, oh, I don't know, she'll just be like, it's okay. Remember, it's okay. That's why we did this. That's why you chose to work less. That's why we saved for this. Like, you're right. So, and then you talk about financial scripts with your mom and
Yeah.
teaching your kids. Like, I don't have to put that energy into like money as much of being an issue. I would argue we spoil our kids with like the time we give them. Like they literally played in the mud last week. Like their play was a hose and dirt. So I don't want people to think like, oh, you spoil them with all this stuff because you don't have to think about it. No, they like cheap stuff. Like it's okay. I enjoy it. They're rich experiences, but it's allowing us to at this point say, oh, there's not a lot of points where we're like, oh, we can't do that because we can't afford that. And she grew up with a military family. I had teachers as parents, so like there were lots of moments like that, and I don't think it like scarred me, but it just certainly imprints on your head. Like, do I want to live like that? And fortunately, like our tastes are pretty affordable, except for the expensive water.
Actually, well, you had asked him, what are some of the things we say to remind us that we are living the rich life now? A quote from Gretchen Rubin we often use is like, live the bigger life. So when we're facing one of those choices, we're always intentional with our spending. Is it worth spending the money on this thing? Well, if this thing is living the bigger life, like getting a dog, that was choosing the bigger life. Like it's work, it's hassle, you got to take him to the vet, but he brings joy and energy and fun into the family. Or a big trip, that's the bigger life. Choose the bigger life. These are the good old days. Like those little things you just have to tell yourself to bring that gratitude back and remind you that you have it really great. I think as humans, we habituate quickly. So whether that's for good or bad, if stuff is really hard, we get used to it. And if stuff's really great, we get used to it. So we kind of get used to the life we have and have to pause and remind ourselves how grateful we should be.
Yeah, the example you gave of, them playing in the mud is just such a cool example of that, right? Because I think the risk is if we're not careful, sometimes we project, some of these big experiences, some of these huge costs, which are cool. Like, I want to do those things, right? The international trips, the other things. But sometimes as we're living in that future state, we literally lose what's right in front of us if we're not careful. Hey, the kids are having abundant joy playing in the mud. Or, for us yesterday, it was just a torrential downpour and they're running around the, streets, and the neighbors are probably like, what are these, wild boys doing? And like, I had to like let go all of the reasons why they shouldn't be doing that. And it's like, that to them is probably a lot more fun than whatever trip we're going to take to, do whatever, or, it certainly has value. So I think just being present in those, easier said than done, but so important. Cory, I'm curious because you it sounds like to hit the calculator a lot. Has the FI number changed, evolved at all? Is that something that you guys kind of set and it is what it is, or are you looking at that number on a regular basis?
I wouldn't say regular basis, but in my head, I kind of adjusted. But I think it's going back to we habituate, like looking at where our net worth was in 2020 to where it is now and what we have saved for retirement back then versus what we have now. In my head, I'm like, well, it's here. Oh my gosh. Well, maybe we want to spend this much more in retirement. So in my head, I think of like a floor of like the minimum I want to have for retirement to let us do the things we want to do, whether it's travel, if our kids are off doing cool stuff around the country or world, be with them versus like just what we need to live day-to-day basis. And so I would say like the ceiling has increased, but the floor has stayed the same. Like it'd be like, oh, if I can get to this much, that would be really cool. And kind of getting back to what Cassie said, like you can give more. You can give more of your money, your time, your whatever that might be. So, and like the truth is, like more money gives you more options. It would be nice to. We live in a world where that is the reality now. As pharmacists, we have certainly many more options with our income than many other professions. But looking at retirement or right now, like the more money you have, the more resources you have, more options with what you want to do, where you want to live, what you can do, what you can buy. So, the long answer to shorten it out, the floor of what I want for retirement or what we want is about the same, but the ceiling in my head is like dreaming on that. So
yeah, I love it. It reminds me of I've shared this book before on the podcast, but there's a book called Happy Money by Elizabeth Dunn, and I'm drawing a blank on the second author, but they're researchers that study the connection between happiness and money. And there's so much of your guys' story that connects with that, you know, the things that actually do have a connection between happiness and money are experiences, are giving, some of the value of just delayed gratification and, you know, reaping that benefit into the future. And, you know, I think the story that you guys are sharing, like you see that connection really strong. And sometimes we throw that around a lot. Happiness, money, what does that mean? But it's what we're talking about here. It's time. It's the experiences, it's the giving, it's being in the position to be able to do those things. If we were to look out 5, maybe 10 years, so 10 years, you have 3 teenagers? Close?
we would have 2 teenagers and
Preteen?
a little preteen.
I hate my preteen hates that term, by the way, preteen. So,
Well,
so
I mean, technically everyone under 13 is
Right.
preteen, but we don't need to get into the nuts and bolts of language.
so if we look out, let's do the 10-year mark.
10 years. Okay.
Just what comes to mind in terms of you're on this Coast.fi journey? We're starting to really get to the question of kind of like, so what, right? You guys put yourself in the position to be in, like you've got a season of life where kids are still under the roof, but about to begin to transition at some point, maybe. What comes to mind? Like what does the Coast.fi journey afford for you guys at that season, in that season of life?
Oh, why don't you go, Dreamer?
I'm trying to wrap my head around what it's like to have kids who are bathroom independent and don't need
Driving?
driving.
Yeah.
Like this is just a whole brave world. But you know, that would be probably our last year of our oldest being home with us. So I just making memories that will carry forward through the rest of their life. So any grand experiences, and it doesn't have to be fancy travel, but just I would just still go back to experiences and time together, and just having the option to do that, to be able to.
Yeah. I think of him being in his last year of like the oldest being in the last year of high school, the middle one being in high school, the little one being in middle school. Like, you know, if things are the same as they are now, there's piano recitals and sporting events, and at that level, there's higher stakes, so there's more fun to be had there. And I'm just thinking of having the freedom to go and do and see all of it that we want to. And I think that's where this journey, hopefully, will take us, is that if the point comes where it's like, well, you can't because you have to work, I'll be like, well, maybe I won't work. And because I mean, there we're almost 50. So you're 10 years on from traditional retirement. We have a better picture of what that retirement income or retirement savings looks like, what that maybe after tax savings look like, and then being willing to dip into some of that to see where that takes us. And maybe we won't need to use the 529 on that one. Maybe he'll find a way to get college paid for. But if not, there's having that time to prepare them for the real world, because that's where they're heading off at that point in life.
Great stuff. I love it. I've got 4 quick questions to wrap us up, kind of a rapid fire round of questions. I'll leave it to either one of you or both of you to answer if you want. First question is something you recently spent money on that brought you real joy.
I bought like a Yeti cup and a Yeti water bottle. And we live in Tucson, so it's real hot here in the summer. So to have 2 things that keep my water cold all day long, it's been great.
It's important.
So for a combined under like $70 to have real cold water has been nice. Real joy.
I bought myself running shoes.
Let's go.
That were kind of fancy.
Yeah.
I think that's my latest big purchase that I can think of.
All right.
I've gotten really into crocheting, so buying
right.
yarn. I know that's
big spender.
Without thinking about it. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Right. I just pick what I want, the colors I want, the type I want.
Favorite family tradition or rhythm that brings connection, not from your growing up, but the favorite family tradition or rhythm that brings you guys connection is your core unit.
Oh gosh. I love that at bed, like at night, we're all kind of together as we get ready for bed. And then there's like usually like a family snuggle or jump on the bed and doing flips and trying to stop them. But just that like moment where we're all just together before we go to sleep.
Yeah, we eat dinner together every night.
Love that.
I think, and we like well, for as much as, the kids will sit still, but like the idea, like we're all sitting down in the same room. We're in the same room. We're not all sitting. There's food out. It's dinner. It's technically, but like we're all together. We've been able to do that. Like with our schedules, there's not a lot of, getting home late from work, no dinner ready. Like we have that time together. So I'll piggyback off her and go slightly earlier in the evening.
Birthday tradition. We always fill the living room.
Oh,
with
that's
balloons, and
fun.
we wake up to a living room of balloons.
That's fun.
Yeah.
It's just just simple little things.
Keep doing that. They, as you guys know already with your old, they remember a lot more than you think they might in the moment. So keep going with those. Those are great examples. If you go back and change one financial decision, is there anything, one that you might do? Cory, I think I might know your answer, but I'm not gonna spoil it.
I'm gonna let Cassie answer this one because it will let her steam off the anger.
I don't know if this is what you're thinking. There was this shed, Cory.
Oh,
Fun
no, that's
that we were
different.
going to put in the backyard that we ended up just not
No,
doing.
was not thinking of that.
Okay, it just seems like every 5 years or so, he just has to do something that wasted.
Are we coming up on that
Yeah,
5-year
that
time?
was-
When's it due?
I don't know. I was gonna say our whole life policy.
Oh, oof, whole life insurance. Oh, yeah.
If you had blinked that black
Yeah.
out,
I forgot
but the shed that never was pretty bad too.
That's good.
So,
Awesome.
listen up, everyone. We all make mistakes.
Amen.
So if you're thinking that we're perfect, no, we are
Amen.
not.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. This was a ton of fun just to reflect back on the journey and progress. Thank you guys for your willingness to share and really appreciate it and look forward to following the journey ahead.
Of course. Well, we appreciate you, all of everything that YFP has helped us on our journey. And if you're listening, keep listening to Tim and company. And it's a pleasure sharing. And hopefully, if you're listening, you realize it can be done. So, and one last parting word is we led a very fun life. As I said, the party was going on up until we hit that Coast FI number. We traveled. We've hit multiple Major League Baseball stadiums. We've had
No rice and
beans.
beans. Yeah.
No beans and rice and beans. We saw the inside of a restaurant a few times, Dave. So there was and I'm going to steal a term from another great podcast called The Money Guy Show, called Bedazzle Your Basic Life. And I think that along the way, we really bedazzled our life in simple ways that made it fun and not like grit your teeth and white knuckle it to financial independence.
Well, great stuff. Thank you guys again. Really appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Bye.